Welcome to the Iran 1400 Project podcast, where we explore the past, present, and possible futures of Iran through informed dialogue, independent thought, and diverse voices. From historical insight to emerging narratives, we connect ideas to action in the pursuit of a more just, inclusive, and forward-looking society. Join us as we rethink Iran's trajectory, one conversation at a time.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into a question that's, well, more relevant than ever. The very nature of unity and national identity in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't just about, a country on a map. It's a civilization.
Absolutely. Layered with incredible contradictions, these powerful continuities, and collective dreams stretching back millennia.
And for this deep dive, we're drawing our core insights from a really fantastic piece of research.
Yeah.
It's called Unity, Identity, and Civic Belonging in Iran. It's part of the Iran 1400 project, written by Vafa Mostaqim.
Ah, yes. A really insightful source. And our mission today really is to explore how Iran, at pretty much every critical juncture in its long history, has grappled with this profound question of unity.
Right. What does it actually mean?
Exactly. Who gets to define it?
Yeah.
And how can it, realistically be preserved?
Yeah.
The Iran 1400 project really zeroes in on these core questions, like what kind of unity can hold space for difference?
That's key.
And what kind of national identity can emerge from pluralism rather than erasure? Big questions.
Huge questions. And this isn't just some academic discussion, is it? For the history books.
Not at all.
What this research really highlights is that we're talking about a very current, very pressing context in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Things like, growing generational divides, regional marginalization, heartbreaking gender-based repression, and widespread civic unrest.
Right.
I mean, you just have to think about the powerful woman life freedom movement. It resonated around the world.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the key argument the authors put forward is that true unity, it needs to be rooted in something far more profound than just, top-down definitions.
Okay. Like what?
It needs to be rooted in what they call civic belonging.
Civic belonging.
Yeah, which is about a shared sense of community, mutual responsibility.
Okay.
Also ethical interdependence, meaning we really get our moral reliance on each other.
Right.
And an evolving concept of Iranian citizenry.
Yeah.
That's the core framework we'll be exploring today, in depth.
So the challenges today are undeniable. But the paper immediately zeroes in on the urgency of this question of unity right now in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
What are the current dynamics making this such a pressing issue?
Well, the contemporary challenges are indeed very pressing. Those growing generational divides you mentioned.
Yeah.
The regional marginalization, ongoing gender-based repression, and the civic unrest. They're all sort of bubbling to the surface.
You really feel it.
You do. And when you hear slogans like woman, life, freedom, or the distinct chants from, say, ethnic and religious minorities, it's a clear indication that Iranian society is actively seeking a unity that isn't simply, defined from above.
Okay, so not imposed.
Exactly. It signals a fundamental reevaluation of what holds society together.
That idea of unity not being from above is fascinating. But if that's the case, then what does define Iranian identity? Where do people find that common ground?
Well, it leads us directly back to that idea of unity being rooted in civic belonging.
Okay, that shared sense.
That shared sense of community and responsibility, yeah. And ethical interdependence and a truly evolving understanding of Iranian citizenry.
Right.
And what's powerful, I think, is that this deep dive won't just explore these as like abstract ideas.
No.
No, we'll look at them through the lenses of Iran's history, its philosophy, moments of civic resistance, and even proposals for institutional design.
After hearing about the historical push for unity, what truly stands out in this research, for me anyway, is the revelation that Iran also possesses this incredible indigenous tradition of embracing diversity.
Yes, that's often overlooked.
Can you walk us through some of those powerful examples?
Absolutely. Let's start with Iran's rich poetic and mystical traditions. Immensely influential. Figures like Bedel Dalavi, for instance, didn't see multiplicity as a threat, not at all. He saw it as a reflection of truth's richness.
Interesting.
And Rumi, maybe more famously, wrote, "The lamps are different, the light is the same.
Beautiful line.
Isn't it? Highlighting a shared essence beneath all the surface distinctions. And then there's Sadi's immortal verse, which, you can find at the entrance in the United Nations.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that was Sadi.
Yes. The children of Adam are limbs of one another.
Incredible.
So this tradition frames unity not as sameness, but as a shared humanity, grounded in humility and mutual care. It offers a profound civic rationale for coexistence. And building on this, you have the Baha'i faith, which emerged in mid-19th century Iran. It introduced a really compelling civic model of unity and diversity.
Despite facing persecution, right?
Exactly. Despite significant marginalization, the Baha'i community has advanced this philosophy where unity is seen as a societal strength, not, a burden.
How so?
Well, Abdul Baha, a respected moral thinker, described unity not as uniformity, but as the harmonious cooperation of diverse elements, like an orchestra.
I see.
And this vision has practical civic implications, like consultation, where everyone's voice is ideally heard, nonpartisan administration to ensure fairness and equal participation in community life.
So real-world application.
Yes. Recovering this legacy, the research argues, means recognizing an overlooked strand of Iranian civic thought. It offers a values-based framework for pluralism that really deepens our understanding of citizenry. And finally, we see this pluralist tradition really at play during Iran's constitutional revolution, 1905 to 1911.
A pivotal moment.
Absolutely pivotal. This was a period where Iran started imagining a nation held together not by bloodline or religious creed, but by law and citizenship.
The shift in thinking.
A major shift. Thinkers like Ahmad Khosravi and Muhammad Ali Faraoui were advocating for a civic identity based on rational governance. And even minority leaders at the time were calling for things like federalism and linguistic recognition, to foster genuine inclusion.
Were those ideas adopted?
Well, no. Though these aspirations were ultimately interrupted, they revealed this deep desire to forge unity through institutional pluralism and an early vision of Iranian citizenry grounded in equal rights and civic participation. It was there.
That's a powerful revelation, especially when, like you said, many might only see Iran through a lens of imposed unity.
Exactly.
But if these pluralist traditions are so deeply rooted, why do we see so much internal conflict and suppression today? What happened between those ideals and the current reality?
That's exactly where the story gets, complex. These historical threads, they show a deep-seated tradition of pluralism.
Clearly.
What's fascinating here is how these different traditions, from poetry to civic movements, they all point towards a similar underlying principle.
Which is?
That true unity can encompass and even be enriched by diversity. It's not an either.
These historical threads really paint a fascinating picture of Iran's internal dynamics. But let's fast forward a bit now and see how these ideas of national identity have actually evolved over the last century or so, shaped not just by state ideologies, but crucially by those bottom-up movements, too.
Indeed. So under the Pahlavi monarchy, 1925 to 1979, national identity was quite deliberately centered on Persian heritage, harking back to pre-Islamic empires, and this narrative of modernization.
Right, the Shah's vision.
Exactly. Their slogan was basically one nation, one language, one history.
Very homogenizing.
Very. And while this approach did foster a sense of national pride, and some modernization, no doubt, it explicitly excluded Iran's ethnic, linguistic, and religious diversity, often marginalizing non-Persian groups pretty severely.
So a very top-down, almost Persian-first identity. Was there a significant cost to that approach?
Oh, absolutely. It created divisions that would, later resurface quite dramatically. Then, with the rise of the Islamic Republic from 1979 to around 2009.
The revolution.
Yes. Identity was redefined dramatically through Shia Islam and revolutionary resistance. National belonging became sort of tethered to ideological loyalty.
So loyalty to the system.
Pretty much. And this meant religious minorities, secular Iranians, non-Persian ethnic groups. They were often sidelined or sometimes outright suppressed.
Right.
This model sought unity through spiritual hegemony, let's call it. But it came at the cost of pluralist inclusion and a shared sense of citizenry. That link was broken for many. But then the 2009 Green Movement marked a new turning point.
I remember that.
Yeah. What began as an electoral protest quickly evolved into this civic awakening, really, that challenged this imposed unity.
How so?
Well, slogans like "We are all together and hope is the seed of our identity" explicitly rejected those ideological and ethnic divisions.
Ah, okay.
This movement really embraced the idea of shared citizenship and demanded legal and democratic rights for all Iranians, regardless of background. It was a revival of that crucial bottom-up vision of Iranian citizenry. And most recently, of course, the 2022 protests.
Sparked by Mahsa Amini's death.
Yes.
Exactly. Ignited by the tragic death of Mahsa Jina Amini. These protests powerfully elevated dignity, bodily autonomy, and universal rights as central to Iranian identity.
Led by women, youth.
Yes, led by women, youth, and marginalized communities. The slogan, woman, life, freedom, just cut across ethnic, gender, and generational lines in a way we hadn't really seen before.
Is it everywhere?
It really was. It redefined unity not as obedience to an ideology, but as solidarity and pursuit of dignity.
A profound shift.
Absolutely. It powerfully affirmed that Iranian citizenry must include all voices, not just those deemed loyal to the state.
It's clear that these narratives of national identity are, as the source says, deeply contested. So given all these shifts and struggles, what does this all mean for achieving true unity today? What are the biggest hurdles right now?
Well, the research lays out the significant barriers to civic unity, and they are substantial.
Okay.
The Iranian state continues to define belonging in very narrow ideological terms. That's one major thing. Ethnic and religious minorities still face systemic legal and social discrimination.
Ongoing issue.
Big time. And civic dissent is essentially criminalized, which shuts down vital avenues for dialogue and change.
Silencing voices.
Precisely. And even within the diaspora, you see political fragmentation and, frankly, disinformation campaigns that have hindered the development of a cohesive civic vision.
So challenges both inside and out.
Yes. So, yes, these narratives of national identity are deeply contested, and a shared understanding of Iranian citizenry remains, I'd say, aspirational rather than truly institutionalized yet.
That's a comprehensive list of challenges, which brings us to the proposed solution in the research. Toward a civic belonging.
Yes.
What exactly does this entail, given all these deep-seated issues?
Well, what clearly emerges from this history, I think, is not the failure of unity itself, but rather the failure of top-down exclusionary visions of unity. Those have consistently failed.
Okay, makes sense.
So instead, the Iran 1400 project, in three words, advocate for civic belonging.
Define that a bit more.
It's essentially a participatory framework. The idea is that all Iranians, regardless of background, belief, location, are equal agents in shaping their society.
Active involvement.
Active involvement, not passive reception. It's key. And at the heart of this framework is a renewed call for Iranian citizenship. It conceived differently.
How so?
As a unifying narrative rooted not in bloodline belief or ideology, but in shared rights, mutual responsibility, and moral agency.
So more ethical.
Exactly. Citizenship here isn't just a legal status. It's conceived as a civic and ethical identity that truly invites every Iranian, wherever they reside, to participate in shaping the nation's future. Political scientist Aram Hassami frames this really well, I think. He says it's a moral task, stating, "Unity without plurality is tyranny. Diversity without unity is fragmentation."
Wow. That really captures the tension.
It does. It's a powerful warning and maybe a guiding principle. And historian Abbas Amanat adds another layer. He reminds us that Iranian identity has always been defined by dynamic dualities.
Dynamic dualities.
Yeah, essentially contrasting forces that have shaped its very character through history.
Like what?
Think of the tensions between din and dawlat face and state.
Okay.
Or the concept of Iran and Iran's self and other in national identity.
Right.
And even the internal push and pull between Boom and Bar, the center, and the periphery of the country itself.
Interesting.
Reconciling these, Amanat argues, requires not enforced consensus, but inclusive institutions, participatory dialogue, and ethical public discourse.
Hard work.
Necessary work.
Yeah.
Unity in diversity, the research stresses, is not an abstract dream. It is a political and civic necessity for national renewal.
Right.
And crucially, it must be built from the ground up.
How?
Through fair laws, inclusive education, consultative governance, and a shared commitment to the Iranian citizenry. Bottom-up reinforcement.
What a powerful, forward-looking message this research delivers. It truly highlights that it won't be a single ideology or faction that scripts Iran's future.
No.
But the many voices insisting on dignity, participation, and shared responsibility.
Precisely. The research concludes that Iranian citizens, conceived in this broad ethical way, offer a unifying narrative capable of fostering pluralism without demanding uniformity.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. And this narrative, it stresses, is not a Western export. It is a civic ideal deeply rooted in Iranian history and increasingly voiced by its people.
Important distinction.
Very. Ultimately, the powerful metaphor here, which I really like, is that Iran is not a puzzle to be solved, but a mosaic to be honored.
What an incredible deep dive. We've really journeyed through centuries of Iranian history, haven't we?
We have.
Examining how these profound questions of unity and national identity have been debated, imposed, and ultimately reimagined from the ground up. This concept of civic belonging as a foundation for a diverse society really gives you a lot to consider.
It does. And, given Iran's rich yet often suppressed history of pluralism that we've discussed, here's maybe a thought for you, the listener, to mull over. What specific concrete steps could actually be taken today, right now, to foster those inclusive institutions and that participatory dialogue that are essential for building a truly civic belonging from the ground up? What does that look like in practice?
A vital question for our current moment. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
And we encourage you to continue your own exploration of these vital topics.
Thank you for listening to the Iran 1400 Project podcast. The Iran 1400 Project invites scholars, experts, and intellectuals to share their assessment of the evolution of institutions and ideas during the past 100 years to inspire a vision of Iran in the 1400s. If you found today's episode thought-provoking, be sure to subscribe, share, and continue the conversation. For more content and upcoming events, visit Iran1400.org. Until next time, stay engaged, stay informed, and stay hopeful.